Multiplying and dividing integers. So we've already dealt with adding and subtracting, and multiplying and dividing actually in some ways is easier because there's just a few rules that you have to remember. So let's start just talking about this example, and we'll get to this example actually a little bit later on. It says here, stock market, you own shares of stock in a computer company and in a utility. The value of the shares changes over time. The table shows the number of shares of each type of stock you own and the change in the value of each share over a 1-year period. What was the total change in the value of your shares of stock? In example 2, you will see how to multiply integers to answer this question. So we'll get to that in a minute. The computer stock, 200 shares, decreased by $3 per share. Utility, 150 shares, increased by $2 per share. So the rules in terms of multiplying integers. If the signs are the same, so if I have -2 times -3, if the signs are the same, you end up with a positive. Just like, again, 2 times 3 is going to be a positive. If the sign, so that's what that says right there. If the signs are different, then you're going to end up with a negative. That's going to be a negative. And if you multiply anything by 0, then you're going to end up with a 0. So those are just the three main rules that you need to keep in mind. And so here's the examples. -3 times -12, and that's 36. Remember, if you have something like this, -3, -12, that means it's a multiplication problem because the -3, the reason why it looks that way is that the -12 unit indicate that's a negative number, and that's a little bit easier to see when you have parentheses on it. So negative, next one here, -7 times 9, that's going to be -63 because they have different signs. And -24 times 0, that's just going to be plain old 0. So here we get back to that problem, the stock problem, and verbally talking it out, writing out this sort of plan is a really good idea so you can verbally see what's happening. So you're looking for the total change. That's equal to the computer shares, the number of computer shares times the change in one share, plus the utility shares, the number of utility shares, times the change in one share. And when you plug in all the numbers, what you end up getting is 200 times -3 plus 150 times 2. So you lost $600 on the computer shares and you gained $300 on the utility shares, so you end up with -$300 total. Now, dividing integers, it's the same sort of thing. One way of thinking about this is this idea of, and it mentions this here, this idea of that we know that 3, from just doing the multiplication, 3 times -4 is equal to -12. Okay, so if that's the case, then -12 divided by 3 is going to be equal to -4. Because all I did was, up here, I just divided by 3 on both sides. And when I did that, so this here is a negative divided by a positive, so it's going to give us that negative number right there. That's basically what this part here is saying. And the rules are the same with multiplication and division. If you are dividing by something that is the same sign as the thing you're dividing into, so if I have -20 divided by -2, then I'm saying how many -2's fit in -20? Well, that's just going to be 10. And since the signs are the same, it's a positive answer, just the way 20 divided by 2 would be a positive answer. And then the alternate part of the rule is that if you're doing this over here, this sort of thing here, -20 divided by 2, then it's going to give you a negative answer. And that's just the way to think about it. And obviously, the quotient of 0 and any non-zero integer is 0. So 0 divided by anything is equal to 0. So those are the key rules on there. For these problems here, I'm just going to go over them quickly. And really, the main thing is just whether it's positive or negative, because I'm confident that you'll be able to do the math in terms of the actual multiplication or division. So for this first problem here, 9 times negative 11, that's going to be a negative answer because it's positive times negative. Negative 6 times negative 8, that's going to be a positive answer because there's two negative signs. 0 times negative 100, that's just going to be 0. Negative 4 times negative 8, that's going to be a positive number again. Negative 24 divided by 3, that's going to be a negative because there's only one negative there. For, let's see here, 0 divided by negative 25, that's just going to be 0. So you can't fit negative 25 into 0. Negative 35 divided by negative 7, that's negative divided by negative, so you're going to end up with 5. 24 divided by negative 6, that's just going to be a negative again. It's going to be negative 4. One last thing we need to talk about are measures of central tendency. Those are just statistical ways of seeing how a data set sort of is, how it can be read and interpreted. And the one that we're going to talk about the most right now is mean. And you may remember the ones that people generally talk about, they talk about mean, mode, and median. And in your book it goes over what each of these are. The mean is also known as the average. The mode is the number that most often occurs in the data set. And the median number is the number that if you put them in order from least to greatest, it's the number that is in the middle. So let's talk about this. If it says here, the table shows the record low monthly temperatures from June to November at McMurdo Station in Antarctica. Find the mean of the temperature. Either way, it's darn cold. So, and actually remember here, it's getting closer to summer there because in Antarctica, the seasons are reversed from where they are in the northern hemisphere. So negative 42, negative 59, negative 57, negative 47, negative 40, and negative 19. So what you're going to do is you're going to add together all these numbers. And when you add them all together, they're all negative numbers, so we can just add the total together and then keep the negative sign. So it's negative 264, and then we count them up. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Divide by 6, and you end up with negative 264 divided by 6, and that gives you negative 44 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cold.